My name is Matthew Rands. I'm the president of the UIMF, and I'll be hosting this discussion. The UIMF is a coalition of student clubs, and we have an excellent program for you on how UVU students can promote the Mountain Agenda on an international level through engaged learning at the Commission of the Status of Women this March. We will hear from Dr. Baldomero Lago, CIO and Vice Rector for Global Engagement at UVU. Also, we'll hear from Dr. Jed Schilling, Board of Trustees of the Mountain Institute, Dr. Andrew Tabor, Executive Director of the Mountain Institute, Dr. Rusty Butler, Main Representative of the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences, and Dr. Wendy Yang, the President of the NGO Utah-China Friendship Improvement, Sharing Hands, and Development and Commerce. As part of engaged learning, we'll also have students come up and read their bios of each of the speakers before they speak. Followed our speakers' presentations, we'll have a Q&A with the audience, and then presentations of gifts by Derek Garfield, and we'll go to that point in the program. I'll ask if William Christ could come up and present the bio. Dr. Lago.
In his current position, Dr. Lago organizes and manages UVU's global and intercultural academic initiatives. Prior to it, he was a professor of language and pedagogy at UVU. He received his undergraduate and postgraduate degrees in the U.S. and a doctorate degree in extraterrestrial technology in Spain. Dr. Lago is the honorary consul of Spain in Utah. He was awarded the title of Knight Commander of the Royal Order of Civil Merit by King Philip VI of Spain in 2016. Dr. Lago.
Then okay. No, this doesn't work. I use both. There you go. And then it will be pick this one. Oh, this is for the video camera. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, I guess I'll use this will be a true stereo. 2 mics, hopefully 2 sounds. It is good to be with you. Good morning again to all of you representing this house or academic institution of Utah Valley University. It is an honor for me to share this roundtable discussion with such a great panelists and wonderful individuals like Dr. Schilling on my left and Dr. Tabor, of course my good old colleague Dr. Rusty Butler, as well as Dr. Yan. It is, it is an honor, and folks, you need to understand, students at Utah Valley University, of the wonderful initiatives that this campus is moving forward when it comes to sustainable mountain development, activities like this one, and the upcoming activities that will happen on this campus in regards to our alliance or association with the United Nations. I just arrived last night from New York, and I have had the opportunity to meet with United Nations for a few days. And I want to inform to you folks that as of this past week, I have been able to present a documentation to the UN for Utah Valley University to become an associate member of the United Nations, especially through the Department of DPI, the Department of Public Information. On November 17th, we will have a major celebration to celebrate as the only academic institution in this part, not only in the state of Utah, but in multiple states around our region, that will have the credibility, the accreditation, and the initiative to move forward with many United Nations initiatives such as like the Sustainable Mountain Development. Of course, you will see shortly a great campaign that is going to happen on October 24th in regards to the United Nations Day, as we will celebrate and we will display some of the objectives and goals established by the UN in regards to the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, the 17 SDGs. We have worked together in the past. This is nothing new. I remember back in 2013 being with Dr. Tabor and Erzurum, Turkey, as the students from this university were presenting wonderful papers in regards to mountain sustainable activities and our association. We look forward to a stronger collaboration. Students, you are at the right academic institution when it comes to initiatives such as this one. This is a treat for all of us to be at the foot and next to such wonderful scholars that will be able to present a message. You folks came to listen to them, not to me. But I just want you to know, from Utah Valley University's perspective, we're in full support of these initiatives like this one, and more things to come. I don't know how many of you know that we do have multiple initiatives going on campus, from Women on the Mountains, that has actually happened several times in this academic institution. The Enactus organization that we have on campus through the business school, that also is linked to some of the initiatives through the United Nations. We have a UNICEF on campus. We also have an ambassadorial program. We bring UN ambassadors to this campus, right? We have the Foreign Affairs Club. We have Model UN. We are doing a lot of things in regards to let the community know of what's happening in connection with the United Nations and some of their initiatives. Again, it is an honor for me to be with you. Thank you very much for those that have worked very hard to organize this event. Beck, you're always my friend. Thank you for all your effort. Students, you have done an incredible job to putting this thing together, and we're looking forward to hearing from the panelists, and I hope you enjoyed today. Thank you very much.
Dr. Schilling earned his PhD in economics at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He worked on the United Nations Environment's Program Green Economy Report. He wrote many intensive studies on the infrastructure environment nexus. He is also on the board of Friends of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Please welcome Dr. Schilling to the podium.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about the importance of mountains to all of us, because in ways we don't always consider, they're part of the foundation of so much of the environment that we depend upon. Here we see pictures of mountains all around the world and why they're so important, because among other things, more than half of humanity depend on mountains for the fresh water, for drinking, and agriculture and sanitation and things like that. They supply over 2/3 of the fresh water used downstream, and the wetlands and things are critical for carbon storage and sequestration. They play an important role of that, so they have an impact on climate change. They are also an important source of resources like timber, but also mineral resources, and that is a benefit that people have counted on, and they often ignore the costs of what those happen, which we can go into a little bit more. There's a lot of biodiversity in mountains, lots of wild animals and plants, lots of forest cover up there, and the terrestrial biodiversity hotspots, of 34 of them, 25 are in mountains. So we have an awful lot of biosphere reserves in the mountain areas, so they're important for that as well. Now, there's also historic cultures based in mountains from around the world, and the wealth and tradition. They have quite a large population in many languages and historic sites. And as you know here, there's a lot of mountain recreation work going on, but many of the mountain people in much of the world are excluded from cultures downstream. They're considered inferior people up in the mountains, so there are tensions as well as many important resources from the mountains coming downstream. And mountains obviously have an important impact on climate change. They're warming faster than lowlands, and that leads to glacier retreat. And I can give you a simple example here that many of these things and the impacts of what's going on in mountains have a long-term impact. You don't see them happening in the short run, so it makes for harder for people to understand why they need to protect mountain areas. But for example, in the Andes, the glaciers are melting. More water is coming downstream in the summer and fall. Farmers downstream are so happy to get all this water when they need it. And so they're expanding their agriculture. In another 10 to 15 years, when the glaciers have melted, what's going to happen? No more water that they depend upon. So they have to begin to think ahead of shifting their water dependence and taking care of that. So there are many of these things that need to take account of, and worrying about environmental degradation and what happens, and that's an area that we need to take care of. So we need to develop and improve cultures and the lives of people. And this is something the Mountain Institute is very active in doing, because most mountain people are quite poor. There are a lot of work that the Mountain Institute is doing to help improve incomes while protecting the environment in mountains, and also help get more social services to mountains, education, protecting rights of women in particular, which is one of the reasons we've been involved in the women's mountain work, and helping them, because in many mountain areas, women do most of the work in agriculture and things like that, because the men have migrated downstream to try to earn incomes. So we need to have to deal with all of this and see what we can do to protect it. And this involves working with governance and try to assure security in mountains and see how we get the policies up there, and the governments in the whole country, of which the mountain is a part, take adequate care of mountains and work on helping them and protecting the natural resources. And in many of the cases, another factor that's important is the mountain resources in one country are very important for other countries downstream. So they have to be more country coordination to make sure they manage the water correctly, energy, and other factors. So here's an overview of mountains around the world and things that they need to deal with and collect it. You can look at that very quickly as we go on, because we need to partner with mountain people to help transform their livelihoods, protect their cultures, protect especially equal rights for women, and get them educated and things like that. So this is many of the things we deal with going through mountains in those areas. So I will pass it over very shortly to Andrew Tabor of the Mountain Institute. And just very briefly, the Mountain Institute was created by my wife, Jane Pratt, who unfortunately passed away, but she was out here for the initial meeting of the Women in Mountains conference, and recognized from her work at the World Bank how important mountains were for people downstream, and why it was important to set things up and protect them and expand things globally so that they could do it. So she did a major thing of launching this. The Mountain Institute has continued, and Andrew Tabor, who will be describing things going on coming forward, is taking it through some other major expansion to work on more cooperation among various groups and countries to get more impact on protecting mountains in order to protect things downstream. Because as one of the projects he'd set up talks about, is they're kind of a set of global water towers that are providing water downstream. So this is all very important. So now he'll give you many more details about the really impressive, exciting work the Mountain Institute is doing on the ground and expanding further and further around the world.
Sounds good. Hey, thank you very much. Next, we'll like to present Dr. Tabor. And Dr. Andrew Tabor, really the man here in the flesh. For 25 years, Dr. Tabor has worked to conserve nature and to improve the lives of rural people. He studied at the University of California at Santa Cruz and holds a doctorate from Oxford University. Prior to coming to the Mountain Institute, Dr. Tabor was Deputy Director General of the Center for International Forestry Research based in Bogor, Indonesia. So the Mountain Institute also does a lot of work with the Interior Department and Native Americans here in this mountainous area. We hope Dr. Tabor will talk a little bit more about that and about everything else that the Mountain Institute does. Dr. Tabor.
Gosh, well, it's a real pleasure being here. I was here a number of years back, and I've always been impressed by the energy, enthusiasm of students at UVU, and also of the several professors who've been astonishingly supportive of the mountain issues around the world. I'd particularly like to thank Ambassador Abdursayev, who's become a dear friend, but also Rusty Butler, Dr. Lago, et cetera, for supporting events like this and for advancing the role of UVU in the UN and elsewhere. And I'd also like to thank all of you students for your enthusiasm. I've certainly seen previous students here in action at a major meeting on mountains in Turkey and other events. So I think you're doing a lot, and I'm grateful for that. Well, I'd like to thank Jed for his useful review of why mountains should matter to everyone. And then I've got a few brief talking points. I'm rather conscious of the clock, and I know you've got classes and so on to go to. But I think the theme of this roundtable is really a fascinating confluence of two critical issues, one related to women and another related to mountains that overlap in the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda for 2030, the SDGs. As I look across all 17 SDGs, and I assume that many of you who are students will have already seen them and know the range of issues that are being addressed there, but I'm struck how critical addressing women's issues and mountain issues will be for attaining many of these goals, not just those in which mountains and or women are specifically mentioned. The motto of the SDGs, one of the key elements that drives them is that no one should be left behind. And frankly, I continue to be very concerned about remote mountain regions, the people that live in them, and also women. That in fact, one of the big challenges to ensure that that happens, that they are not left behind. In the previous slides presented by the Mountain Institute's board member, Jed Schilling, we heard reasons why mountain regions are vital for global sustainability and vitality. And here I wanted to provide a couple comments, a couple illustrations from the Mountain Institute's work in the field where women and mountain issues come together. They often seem inseparable from our perspectives. Both of these examples are from Nepal, but the issues are similar in many other mountain regions. The first one is we've been working for more than a decade with some of the poorest communities in the Himalayas to help these remote farmers cultivate medicinal and aromatic plants. There are huge markets for these products in the Indian Ayurvedic medicine markets and also for Chinese traditional medicine that goes back literally thousands of years. Traditionally, these plants are collected from the wild, and as a result, many of these species are now endangered species, and the collection of them is damaging high mountain ecosystems. What we've discovered through working with local farmers is that they can actually cultivate many of these plants on farm in these high mountain regions, which contributes to protecting ecosystems that are under threat, but also reduces pressure on natural habitats which have been threatened by overharvesting. So what we've done is we've trained about 18,000 farmers in the cultivation of these plants. This can be quite lucrative. Typically, farmers will make around $1,000 a year from them, but a few of the farmers we work with make as much as $30,000 individually. This in Nepal is a fortune. It puts them clearly in middle class, if not better. And this is in a country where incomes are on the order of $600 a year. So this is a major change and improvement in their life. We actually think we're getting them out of poverty, but not only that, we're actually building prosperity. However, it turns out that nearly half the farmers we work with are women. And this is due in large measure because in these remote regions, many of the young men have left. They've gone to pursue employment opportunities in the Gulf states, in the cities nearby, in India, and elsewhere. And so this leaves the women to take care of the families, to take care of the elderly, to take care of the children. This is a major burden. And as a result, many of them have come to us to learn new ways that they can advance their livelihoods. And one of the most exciting results is we're seeing a large number of these women making more money and using that money to send their daughters to school. So it's a really wonderful outcome of the work that we're doing there. Another example of one of the things I was just dealing with last week. We've been asked to pull together a proposal on reducing the negative social environmental impact of new road construction. So across the Himalayas, there are roads being built all over the place in a very sort of haphazard, somewhat disorderly manner, unfortunately. Many of these roads are having severe environmental impacts. Also, you combine this with torrential rains, which are worsening in the face of climate change, earthquakes, and other matters, And many of these roads are just turning into magnets for landslides. And so the land itself is being heavily damaged by this haphazard road construction. The roads are good. I mean, they bring in economic benefits, services, opportunities that aren't there, but they need to be done in a planful, thoughtful way. But one of the things that really came to mind is this shoddy road construction, which is going to link Nepal with major markets in China, major markets in India. There's going to be major truck traffic on it. And I'm desperately concerned about the sort of shoddy roadside businesses that are going to likely be built all across these roads. And so we've got to build into our planning not only environmental concerns, but how we can address the needs and the opportunities for women. I could go on with other examples, but I think given the shortage of time, I think I'll move on to some other things that other points I'd like to make. One is, I wanted to say a few words about the UN's Mountain Agenda more generally. Ambassador Abdurasayev has been involved in pushing the agenda for many, many years, as was Jane Pratt, Jed's wife. And this is a really important initiative of the United Nations that now has 56 countries as members and over 230 non-governmental and other organizations dedicated to advancing the cause of sustainable mountain development. Recent advocacy has been pretty important in terms of highlighting mountain issues in at least 2 of the Sustainable Development Goals. And also in the production of an important study that showed that 40% of the world's hungry, some 320 million people, live in isolated pockets around the mountain world. This is a horrifying statistic that is yet to elicit a specific global response. Recently in the newspaper, I've seen articles declaiming great concern about hunger in the Sahel, in parts of Africa. There's some very serious problems, and then they need an international response. And there has been global attention, cover pages on the New York Times and newspapers throughout the land, drawing attention to this need and trying to galvanize help for them. But I'm struck by the 320 million people in the mountain world that are vulnerable to food insecurity that really aren't getting much attention at all. And this is a real challenge. We need to figure out how the UN can do a better job and how all of us can do a better job at drawing attention to these sorts of issues. Under the banner of the Mountain Partnership within the UN, we've yet to see the development of a strong alliance of mountain countries at the global level to push for these issues to be addressed. There are good examples. Small island developing states have been remarkably successful at raising the profile of island countries around the world. And the recent hurricanes in the Caribbean will help advance their needs. But again, mountain countries risk falling through the cracks. Nor is there a strong civil society public movement. We go to the international climate change meetings as often as we can, and we wave the flag for mountain people, mountain environments, wherever we can. And you'll see outside those meetings very strong groupings of kids, people promoting tropical rainforest issues, a whole range of environmental issues. But we've not yet been successful at galvanizing a sort of mountain movement there. I'd love to see the people in suits and whatnot inside the meetings making more effective statements to push for mountains being better addressed by countries. But it'd also be wonderful to see more kids, mountain climbers, people that love mountains, also making noise from the public side that this is an issue that needs more attention. So we've got much to do. In that particular case, I'm very impressed with the role of women groups. They've been really quite successful, inadequately so because there's still major needs. But I think bringing mountains and women together would be a helpful way to advance the needs of both. Finally, I'm excited about those students who are going to the various UN events coming up. I'm very excited about UVU's membership now, which I think is a great step forward. And I wanted to accentuate that we all need to work together through the Mountain Partnership, which is a great platform for us to make mountains more visible at the UN. And I also am very pleased with UVU's advocacy for mountain women at the upcoming UN Commission on the Status of Women. I think people want to hear your voices. there's enough old white guys like me that speak out at those events. I think it's young folks, be it from whichever origin they are, and I think there's a real desire. And so your voices at those meetings are something that the world is looking forward to hear. So I wanted to encourage you all to engage as best you can. I think you're doing, and to learn more, and so on going forward. So that, in brief, are my comments. Thank you all very much.
We are pleased to welcome next Dr. Rusty Butler. Dr. Butler is a rep to the United Nations for the Russia Academy of Natural Sciences, which is an NGO. It's been recognized as an NGO with the UN since 2002 under the Economic and Social Council. And Dr. Butler retired from UVU in 2016. Before that time, before his retirement, he was the Associate Vice President for International Affairs and Diplomacy, and was also the director of the Utah-Russia Institute until his retirement. And though he has many other accomplishments to his name, when I asked Dr. Butler about any special achievements or if he had any superpowers we should mention, he did say that he's been married for 54 years and has 38 grandchildren. So let's welcome Dr. Butler.
Thank you very much. I feel somewhat intimidated being up here with two men that I consider some of the greatest, Dr. Tabor and Dr. Schilling. And I should mention that Dr. Schilling's deceased wife, Jane Pratt, is probably the giant of anyone dealing with mountain issues in the entire world. And I'm grateful to have known them. I'm also delighted to have spent nearly a quarter of a century here at UVU helping to build the international reputation, and I'm absolutely delighted that Dr. Lago has taken that and taken it to whole new levels, for which I'm very grateful. And he's a very dear friend, longtime friend, him and Amy Barnett, who was my right-hand person and is now his right-hand person. And of course, Wendy over here is a longtime friend with her NGO. I might add that in 3 days, the United Nations ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council, which is one of the most powerful bodies at the UN, is going to celebrate the Day of Older People. And I think there's three of us, Dr. Tabor and Schilling and myself, who fit into that because the United Nations has decided that older people have something to contribute. Although we do know that we're passing the baton off to a whole nother generation. Now I'm just wondering, how do I change this from one slide to the next? Is there? Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, I see. Okay, thank you very much. As I indicated, or as was indicated, the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences is an NGO. It's completely non-political, has nothing to do with the Russian government. And in today's world of animosities between Russia and the United States, I just wanted to make that clear. We still remain friends with the Russian people and the Russian academics and those that are trying to make the world a better place in that country. It has a general consultative status at ECOSOC, and is one of only 136 countries that has that status, or NGOs that has that status of general consultative status, which gives us quite a bit of broad range and makes the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences a very powerful voice in that body. the Academy and UVU started collaborating back in the mid-60s, or in the mid-60s, that dates me, in the mid-2000s. 2006 was when we really began to collaborate, and this has been a source of considerable benefit to both the Academy and to the university here, because of the voice that the Academy has at the United Nations and at ECOSOC, particularly in hosting of the International Women of the Mountains conferences, which have been major events that have been hosted, co-hosted by the university, and have made their way into the reports by the Secretary General of the United Nations. The fourth International Women of the Mountains Conference, which was held in 2015, was hosted and organized by students of the university as part of their engaged learning initiative. And may I say that going back to the very first Women of the Mountains Conference in 2007, which was completely and totally organized by myself and Dr. Baktibek Abdisayev, to have that transition over a period of years, over 4 different conferences, as a complete student initiative was very refreshing. The students, carried that off in a way that we could not have even imagined. This was the perfect blend of student accomplishment and fervor and vision, together with a little bit of nudging on behalf of the faculty and administration here at the university. The UN Secretary's General report, as indicated in this slide, makes mention of this. Also, this collaboration between the Academy and the university has been evident in the development of the Sustainable Development Goals. We actually had a student here at the university who made an oral presentation at the invitation of the co-chair of the Open Working Group from Hungary, the permanent representative of Hungary, and that was a very unusual situation that happened. To actually have a student, the only student of any institution in the world, that actually made a presentation at one of the open working groups that eventually resulted in the Sustainable Development Goals. Also, the gender-related, the things dealing with women, the gender-related conferences that have been held at the UN, both the 60th and the 61st, were involved with students here at the university. Just going back just a bit, the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences actually had us beginning with the UN at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg in 2002. So it goes back quite a bit, which has helped UVU in its cachet with the United Nations. As indicated, UVU and the Academy have collaborated on the Sustainable Development Goals related primarily to gender equality, health, education, poverty eradication, and sustainable mountain development for quite some time. UVU and the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences are members of the Mountain Partnership, and we're grateful for that collaboration that we have with the Mountain Partnership. UVU and the Academy, together with Wendy and her organization and other similar organizations that we collaborate with, participated in the 60th and 61st sessions of the Commission on the Status of Women at the headquarters of the UN in New York. The main goals of our student involvement, or the students of UVU involvement, were to report about students' contribution to the UN gender agenda. When I say our students, I'm being a retired member of UVU's community. I'm still a member of UVU's community, according to the university. In May of 2016, UVU and the Academy were honored at an event in New York, and this was to honor the joint collaboration, and it was done by, it involved several representatives. It involved Ambassador Baudier, who is the permanent representative of Hungary, former president of UNESCO, and her husband, Ambassador, permanent representative of Fiji, Peter Thompson, and his wife, who is the president of the 71st General Assembly of the United Nations last year, and Ambassador Churkin and his wife, who is now deceased recently, Ambassador of Russia to the United Nations. It was held at the Hungarian residence, and they celebrated the collaboration of UVU and the Russian Academy in helping, particularly with youth advocacy. Some of the student engaged learning projects that have gone on through this collaboration include major statements made by the Academy at the UN, which highlighted the UVU model of student advocacy. The 2017 ECOSOC, you can read those, 1, 2, and 3. The 55th Commission on Social Development, and the 4th High-Level Political Forum at ECOSOC on Sustainable Development. This is only just a few. It goes on from there. It's actually too lengthy. I don't want to list it here. Recommendations of where this might go, this collaboration. The UVU model of successful student engagement is a very important model. This, to my knowledge, UVU is the only university that I'm aware of that has participated on an engaged student level at this high a level with the United Nations on advocacy of a number of SDG points, goals in the SDG agenda. And this needs to be continued. The joint collaboration with all of these entities, including the entities that Wendy is involved with, and the Mountain Partnership, and others, we need to continue to engage other UN-registered NGOs and to become vocal in the mountains, in gender issues, and all other SDG issues that we can make a difference on. In 2018, in March of 2018, we are planning to become involved with the status of the Council and the Commission on the Status of Women, 62, as well. And I'm sure that Dr. Lago is going to be heavily involved in helping to make that happen as well. And anything that the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences can do to assist Wendy and her NGOs, as well as Utah Valley University, in making this happen, particularly with our students, we are willing to do. And we certainly have the cachet there at ECOSOC to help make that happen. So anything we can do, please call on us. I commend, again, the students at Utah Valley University. The engaged learning model that has been promoted by President Holland, by Dr. Lago, by Ambassador Abdrisayev and others here at the university is truly remarkable. It's completely unique, and I think it can go a long way to benefiting students as well as the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Butler. Now we are pleased to hear from Dr. Wendy Young, president of the Utah China Friendship Improvement Sharing Hands and Development and Commerce. Dr. Yang founded Beijing-based WJS Liahona International Services to provide opportunities for young people to travel to Asia for humanitarian service. In 2001, she began working with the United Nations on the Millennium Development Goals, where she realized that strengthening family was a salient factor to lifting people out of poverty all over the world. Her organization was granted status of NGO with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. Dr. Young.
Thank you, friends. I want to quickly tell you, the reason I'm so actively here and there is because I have a great family. Allow me to do whatever I want. And I know, like these wonderful brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, you know, without a good family, you really cannot be as free as you are. So let me tell you, besides family, I have a good friend, your President Holland. We actually attend BYU together, and one time when I was at BYU, I just arrived as a new single kid from Taiwan, and he said, Wendy, what's going on? My dad is the president. You are new here. Why do you have more friends saying hello to you than me? That was truly our conversation. Now, I'm here to tell you, welcome hard things in your life. My young friends, tough project is for tough people, and it's good, right? Now, I want to quickly explain some of the things. Oh, sorry. You prefer me to use this? Okay. So I want to tell you how, as a non-traditional student, which I once was, can be benefited by being familiar with UN SDGs. You know, we all have something inside of us when we were a child. We wanted to do something good, big, great. And sometimes you just cannot go through things that you feel comfortable with, which in my case is LDS Church. There are things I really want to get done, but I cannot do it. I need to have something that I can join as organization. In my case, heaven granted me United Nations opportunity. There was a Qatar project from a queen, and people knew about me, so email after email, they found me. They say, Wendy, we need you to get involved with this. So as a little Chinese English speaker, I got involved, and then guess what? Next thing happened was people say, Wendy, you need to get involved with United Nations. I'm like, what do you want me to do with United Nations? It's such a big hall, you know. In fact, they were in the middle of remodeling. Then I realized, yes, indeed, there are lots of things I probably should speak up. So, young friends, remember, they need your voice. You are smart, you are energetic, you know something we don't know. And by the way, Professor, I am never intimidated by old people because I'm too naive to know how great you are. And indeed, the more I work with Dr. Beck and the more I work with his wife, I realize these people are actually great treasure of my life. So here I am to tell you, you get involved with UN, you find great friends. Number one important thing, you find opportunity. In my case, it's the social enterprise ideas. Because you need to always ask yourself, what if? What if these old people say are wrong? What if I know something? What if I design something? And in my case, I want to tell you, it happened to me. I realized, hold on a second, if low-income people are more than 300 million, we just heard, live in mountain, what if we create something they are all interested in? Okay, now I move back to China with the Chinese poverty level. I'm like, what if I can combine 80 million poor families? And I I can give them something that they can pay only less than 1,000 US dollars for 4 years, what will happen to their life? What will happen with the bank that they can share with the commonwealth? What if? And then one after one, I realized that was some possibility. Now I want you to understand about very last 2 minutes of something I want to share with you. You can learn from these great people, and you need to listen to your little heart. Do not become so ambitious, my young friends. Do not become so ambitious that you forget you were once a child, and you were once with nothing, with these people waiting for.
We would like to thank you all for coming, and we'd like to thank our panelists for coming. Each one of these marvelous individuals has given of themselves to something greater than themselves. They've all sacrificed a little and gotten great results out of it, and you can just see the good in the world that they have done. We'll now turn the time over for a little Q&A. We have a little bit of time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. We ask that when you receive the mic, you address it to one of our panelists and ask your question.
I have a general question for the panel. What would you say is the easiest way or the most effective way for students to get involved in something that will make a difference, that will actually bring some kind of change or help widen the scope of involvement for our community?
Indicating through the UVU efforts, and we are calling it the UVUN efforts. You will be able to obtain all this information, to find out some of the resources, some of the activities that we will be working here on campus that will help you, and you will make an impact and a difference in the world, in our community.
Just to add to that, it's very important for students to work on learning more about the critical elements of the mountain issues and how they relate to other things, so they can take account of these in many other activities. It's not just working on mountains, but understanding how mountains relate to so many other things, and getting this message out to more and more people that we need to take this more broad-based, integrated approach to assure the sustainability of our livelihoods and our ecosystems.
I would like to add to that it's really not efficient, I should say, for a student to all on his or her own strike out to do something. I think that what Dr. Schilling has said is very important, and that's become very knowledgeable about what it is that you're looking to tackle. But also, I think that if you hitch yourself to an entity, a reputable entity, such as the Mountain Institute or some of the programs that Dr. Lago and UVU have here, or any other entity that has cachet, that has a reputation, can be a great benefit. I'm thinking personally of some of the things that the Wendy's organizations have done. They have been extremely effective for the youth.
Let me just take 20 seconds. I came back from China 3 days ago, and then I traveled every other month to Asia to watch out for low-income people's need. Without taking long time, I want to tell you my organization, along working with Dr. Butler and Dr. Beck, we have 25 projects that students can get involved, but we won't get into the detail. With that being said, you really have to find out what is your own talent, number one, and what is your life goal that you think is worth your time to be involved with. So these are the some guidelines you need to ask yourself before you really get involved and choose the project. And feel welcome to come talk to us. We're willing to let you know what you can do, and you may have your career open up because of the social enterprise design. Thank you.
We'd like to thank our panelists for coming to UVU and giving such great presentations. And on behalf of UVU and the Utah International Mountain Forum, we'd like to ask Derek Garfield and Lacey Meyer to come on up and present a few gifts for you all. We'd like to thank you all for coming and hope that you have the rest of your great day. We ask that Utah International Mountain Forum members please stay for a photo with the group.